What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. As training camp continues across the NFL and preseason action officially, well, I guess it officially started with the Hall of Fame game on Thursday, but the first full slate of preseason action is this week. So football continues to inch closer. We'll continue to talk about it. Get ready for the season as it pertains to fantasy and your plan of attack in your drafts. And what better way to do that than with a mock draft? Kicking a mock draft off today, sharing obviously a view of the draft room. If you would like to join, there are 11 spots, 10 spots because I'll be joining in myself for a 12-team draft. Anybody can join with a sleeper ID. The invite to the draft is pinned at the top of the chat. So if you are interested in joining, the draft, go ahead and click that link, accept the invite, pick your spot, and we'll get that started here in a bit after we go through the news and notes. It is a 12-team PPR, half PPR, one quarterback. So then start one quarterback, two running backs, three receivers, a flex, a tight end, a flex, a kicker, and a defense. So I should have eliminated kicker and defense for the purpose of the exercise, but I guess we can take a shot at looking at some cheap defenses that might be worth targeting toward the end of drafts. Obviously, a lot can change between now and the start of the season, but we can consider and look at all angles in the mock draft. That's the beauty of it. An opportunity to look at team and roster structure. And you can decide if after what you build is something that you like or something that you want to, maybe take back as your own personal self-evaluation and decide whether you like it or not. And if you don't, just don't follow that plan of attack when it's real, when it's live in a few weeks' time. So we will do a mock draft. The invite is open to anybody who is interested in joining with a valid sleeper ID. Before we get that started, as always, I will go through the latest news and notes that we have from around training camp. And as always, we can do AMA. If anybody has any fantasy-related questions, I can take them during the draft, around the draft. Happy to do that. So we'll start with news and notes, and then I'll give some folks some time if you're interested to join the draft, join the mock draft, get an opportunity to a little practice run before it all becomes real. But I'll give it some time for folks to join. I will claim. Where have I not really drafted from this year? I've had a lot of mock drafts at the top of drafts, so I'm okay with the idea of a little later in the draft. I'll take team 10. So we have 2 spots filled. There are 10 other spots to go. If nobody else fills, that's okay. Those will be auto-selected by computers, so we can still have a productive exercise here. But feel free to join the mock draft if you're interested with a sleeper ID. The link is posted as a pinned comment. To news and notes today. Some injuries to talk about really quickly. Isaac Guerrero, 49ers backup running back, suffered a shoulder injury, expected to miss a few weeks. So I guess, stock a little bit down on him. It doesn't sound like it's serious as far as him missing any significant time during the season. This is obviously valuable practice time, though, an opportunity to get reps, in and out of the starting lineup in all likelihood for Guerrero. That is not going to happen for the rest of the preseason, the rest of training camp as he nurses this injury. So stock down a little bit on him. Mason Taylor, high ankle sprain, Jets rookie tight end, still looks like he is firmly at the top of the depth chart for the Jets at tight end. However, the high ankle sprain will set him back. Practice time, valuable reps with the starters, with Justin Fields for a few weeks. So he probably wasn't on the draft radar in shallow redraft leagues, 10, maybe even 12-team leagues. He probably goes undrafted. But, he's an intriguing guy to look at over the course of the season, potential injury, bye week fill-in, if he starts performing well in a Jets offense that, after Garrett Wilson, doesn't really have, a noteworthy collection of pass catching talent. So it's anybody's guess as to who is, second in targets. It could just be Breece Hall for that offense, but there's an opportunity there for Mason Taylor. We may not feel as strongly about that as we previously did. Now that he's missing a little bit of time here. Darren Waller, unretired tight end now for the Miami Dolphins, should be ready for week 1. He was placed on the PUP list at the beginning of training camp. That is most likely just conditioning related, having sat out last season because he was retired. But week 1 availability sounds like no concerns there for Darren Waller as he just kind of ramps up and gets ready for the season. Chris Godwin, Buccaneers wide receiver, is on track. He's according to the Bucs general manager, Godwin is successfully on the timeline that they kind of laid out for him, mapped out for him. He's clearing hurdles. He's, doing what he has to do to get back out there and move from rehabbing an injury into practice shape. The issue with that, of course, is time spent in the offseason rehabbing an injury. We do often see that lead to rust and shaky play from players coming back from these injuries when they are spending time rehabbing and not so much practicing. So, and on top of that, this update didn't necessarily look like, or confirm anyway, that Godwin is on track to play week 1. And if he is on track to play week 1, what does that even look like? Would he be a decoy out there? Would they even bother putting him out there? So Godwin's timeline, today's update was a positive one, but it doesn't confirm, okay, well, so where is he at as far as return to play, return to the field? So I would still be, proceeding with a solid amount of caution with a guy like Chris Godwin. Dislocated ankle. It was week 8 or 9 of last year. Nasty injury that he has to recover from. Sounds like he's on pace. He's on track. We don't know if that necessarily means, though, like full allotment of week 1 snaps. So, I'm not pushing him up my board. If anything, I'm kind of hoping he slides a little bit before I take the plunge on drafting Chris Godwin. So this update may, at least today, kind of prevent that. So I guess I'm not actively targeting Chris Godwin, despite how awesome he is. Najee Harris, Chargers running back, still no timetable to practice. He has increased his activity to running laps. Any update for an injury, any positive update that you've progressed in your rehab to doing more, doing extra is always great. It's always good. We want the best health for these guys. That can realistically happen. I just don't know that how impactful or significant an update like running laps is for somebody who is dealing with an eye injury. I guess maybe if you're less dizzy when you're running, I hope Najee can see out of both eyes clearly and perfectly fine. We don't really know. We have not gotten any updates as far as the status of his eye injury. So, I guess, running could be considered a positive update if he's not feeling lightheaded when he's, moving at that speed or running, even if he's just jogging. Your eyesight matters for stuff like that. Because if one's not working, I don't know if there's like lightheadedness involved there or whatever. So I guess it's a positive update. But again, he's not practicing. The Chargers have been in camp for a while now because they played in the Hall of Fame game. So they got that extra week of practice, that extra week of camp that 30 other teams don't have. And Najee still has not hit the practice field. So early last week, I declared Amarian Hampton an RB1 on, as far as preseason running back rankings. I feel even firmer, stronger about that today than I did last week. Obviously, any random update from Najee, well, when I say random, I mean positive update from Najee as far as the injury status would pump the brakes on Amarian Hampton RB1 season a little bit. But at this point, I mean, Hampton's taking the first team snaps, the first team opportunities. He's probably not taking all of them, but he's taking a significant chunk of them. And, that can only mean that the team is gearing up and getting ready for Hampton to have to be the guy for them out of the backfield right away. They probably envisioned Najee being the starter and, handling most backfield duties, at least for the start of the season when they signed him, coming into the season, throughout the offseason, prior to training camp, prior to this incident, this injury that he suffered. But not being able to practice for this long, still with no timetable, I mean, I think at this point it's wheels up on Amarian Hampton. He will be if things hold, if things hold as they currently are, which is to say that Najee is still not practicing and, his availability for the start of the season is in jeopardy, Hampton's going to be a late second round pick in redraft leagues. So keep an eye on him. Those I think are the big injury updates. Let's see. What else do we have here? A couple of bigger ticket items. Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison was officially suspended for the first 3 games of the season. So he will be eligible to return in week 4. I believe his ADP is around 70 right now. So a 7th round pick in 10-team leagues, maybe a 6th round pick in 12-team leagues. That suspension is not too bad. Considering we knew that it was going to happen, it was just a matter of the length, the duration of the suspension. So if Addison's ADP officially starts to fall, starts to drop, and maybe we're getting him into the 8th round, maybe even the 9th round because of the uncertainty around a player not being available for the start of the season. Obviously, this isn't an injury. This is just a flat 3-game suspension, and he'll be back week 4. I'm okay with drafting him, especially if he drops some in drafts. If you're getting Jordan Addison in the 8th round, we'll grab an additional depth wide receiver or 2 over the course of the draft. Maybe you grab another wide receiver with some solid capital, either just before or just after you draft him, just to protect yourself for a few weeks. And then by week 4, you're slotting in a guy who is going to look pretty good as a wide receiver 3 for teams that for leagues that start 3 wide receivers. And he's going to have wide receiver 2 upside a lot of weeks because he makes big plays. And expectations are high for this Vikings offense and J.J. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell, the quarterback whisperer. We expect this offense to be good. So I don't mind buying the dip on Jordan Addison. We already knew that he was going to miss a few games due to suspension. Now that it's official, if we see his ADP start to drop a little bit, I'm perfectly fine taking the shot on him. Get another wide receiver or 2 over the next couple of rounds after you draft him to hold you over, and then you slot Addison into your lineup by week 4. He already wasn't costing you that much in the way of draft capital, so it shouldn't have too significant of an impact to the start of your season. So I'm perfectly fine with drafting Jordan Addison. Significant contract update. Rams running back Kyron Williams has officially gotten paid I believe it's a 3-year, $33 million deal, or up to $33 million deal. 23 million of which is guaranteed. Looks like a pretty good, team-friendly deal. Deserved for Kyren Williams. He has handled a significant workload over the past few seasons. Gets a lot of guaranteed money with the Rams. Well-deserved. And locks him in as their guy for at least this year. We'll have to see how the specifics of this contract are structured. It could be in a way that this is sort of, the language and the structure of it make it so that it's maybe more of a 1 or 2 year deal based on the guaranteed money, how much he gets up front, all that good stuff. So we'll get those details probably, no later than the end of this week as they start to come out. I feel perfectly fine about drafting Kyren in the 3rd round of redraft leagues. He's kind of boring at this point, I think. He's not flashy. He's not super exciting. Much has been made about his lack of explosive plays, but the Rams seem to love him. They put him out there for almost, not quite 100% of their offensive snaps, but about as close as any single running back in today's NFL can get. Kyren Williams is out there. He does not miss plays, and he doesn't come off the field for other guys. Now, I guess Blake Corum, Darquez Hunter could mix in a little bit more, this year to spell him, but the team just paid him. So they're going to continue to roll him out there at a very high clip. He's going to handle a lot of the snaps and a lot of the touches. The vast majority of them at this point is what we expect based on the past couple of seasons and now this new contract. So Kyren gets paid. The Rams lock in their running back for at least the short term. Kyren gets some peace of mind. He can now go out there and just focus on football, focus on this, the offense and his contributions. And we, from a fantasy perspective, expect an RB1 season. And he's being drafted as a low-end RB1. I like him in the 3rd round. He's perfectly fine target there. Maybe not over Amari and Hampton at this point, but he's in that range. It's that low-end RB1 range where you can get him in the 3rd round, and regardless of how your build looks through your first 2 picks, Kyren is a good add. Whether you went running back, wide receiver, maybe if you went running back, you're not going to go Kyren in the 3rd round. But, wide receiver, Kyren's a good, grab one of the last RB1s that we're comfortable ranking coming into the season as far as bell cows go. Running back, wide receiver. Also fine with taking Kyren in that scenario. Good pick in the 3rd round, in my opinion. And now he has the contract to lock in what we expect heavy usage. I think that is most of the news and notes from today. So if there is nothing else, I can go ahead and kick off this mock draft. Again, if anyone is interested in joining the mock draft, the invite to the draft room is pinned in the chat. You just need an eligible sleeper ID, and you will be able to select a spot that isn't already taken in this mock draft. I took team 9, Crumply Heads. What's going on? Took team, I believe, 4. Yeah, took team 4. So teams 1 through 3, teams 5 through 9, and then teams 11 and 12 are available if anybody wants to get some draft action in, get a practice round under their belt. I will give it a couple of more minutes before I kick this thing off, just to give folks an opportunity. If not, obviously the computer will auto select some players to keep it moving, and we can talk about obviously the builds that get put together once this draft is complete. It is, again, 12 team, half PPR, start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex, 1 kicker, 1 defense, which I kind of wish I got rid of, but most redraft leagues still have them. So we will keep these included for the sake of a traditional redraft league. And, we can start thinking about, I guess, some ideas for some cheap defenses at the end of the draft. I've done no research on kickers because I don't know hardly anybody that prefers to research kickers. But I will kickers I like to look at on a week-to-week basis during the season. I do not do preseason research on kickers. I will do research on kickers for like a week-by-week basis. So it's pretty rare that I actually draft a kicker. I'd prefer to draft a player who is like IR eligible and stash that player and then grab a kicker off of free agency at some point. Let me see. So this is the link to the draft. I can try to reshare it if you're having trouble seeing it, or let me know if this works. Let me know if you can copy that. Let me know if you can copy that link. And I'll give it a second to see if you're able to access that link and you can join the draft. And then we'll get this thing started. All right, cool. All right, glad that worked. Okay, great. So we have 3 folks in here now. We have Crumplyheads has team 4. We have Ravens Flock has team 6. I have team 10. Did I say I have team 9? I have team 10. And then Steve just joined as well at team 2. So we got 4 people in here. That's pretty good. I'd say that is a good starting point. To go ahead and kick this off. If I get, if there are more folks that trickle in later on, I could, maybe I could kick off another one, but I think for now we can go ahead and get this one started. Any unselected spot will auto pick. So if you're on the clock, if you're around, so I guess team 2, Steve, you're going to be on the clock pretty much right away. Team 1 will auto right away. And we'll keep it moving. 60 seconds per pick, so it's kind of quick, but enough time for you to maybe think about what you want to do for a short amount of time. And again, obviously, it's a mock. This is for practice. Something to think about as you are formulating your plan of attack for your draft, the real thing, in a few weeks' time. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. And I went ahead and selected the roster tab so that you can see the form, or so that you can see the starting lineup. All right, let's do this. Okay. So it's 60 seconds per. It's not a huge amount of time, but again, it's good practice. Chalk so far. So again, 3 wide receivers. Even in half PPR, it's gonna prioritize pushing wide receiver up the board, and with guys like Chase and Jefferson, 2 studs. No surprise that even I would take these guys in the top 5 or 6 picks if I only started 2 wide receivers. So for them to go 2, 3 makes a lot of sense in a league that starts 3 wide receivers. Crumplyheads, I hope I'm not losing you on the auto. And then the computer selects Saquon first overall. I think Chase is going to be a pretty popular consensus 101 in most leagues, unless standard scoring. It's personal preference. Obviously, running back still reigns.
Oh, come on, dude!
All right, Crumplyheads is hopefully we get him back. But Bijan is a pretty chalky pick at that spot of the draft. So. No surprises there. Okay. Wow. All right. The computer made this easy for me. So Ravens Flock went McCaffrey, who I actually do have as my RB3 over Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm perfectly fine with taking McCaffrey at the 106. With the top stud wide receivers off the board. I mean, you could have gone Puka if you really wanted to go strong with wide receiver right out the gate. But I have McCaffrey as my RB3, so he comes off the board at RB3 here. I have no issue with that pick. The computer, however, took Derrick Henry over Jahmyr Gibbs, and Derrick Henry's awesome, but I would not have done that. So I'm going to go ahead and take the chalky pick here. Jahmyr Gibbs could go, anywhere in these first 5 or 6 picks. And so to get him at 10, I feel like I'm a little. Okay. So comes back around to me. Neighbors, Genty, Collins, London. That's pretty chalk. Sometimes Brian Thomas goes ahead of Drake London. Depends on personal preference. If I take Brian Thomas, that allows me to maintain some flexibility for later in the draft. So whoever is going to be available to me at at my third pick, we're looking at this range. So some wide receivers. I wouldn't expect Hampton to last that long, but sleepers, maybe sleepers ID or ADP hasn't updated quite yet. I'm going to maintain some flexibility for my board down the rest of the draft and take Brian Thomas. I'll take a wide receiver, keep things diverse, and keep my options open for the next round. Josh Allen, that high in the second round, I wouldn't do. Obviously, we're drafting with a lot of computers, so they're gonna make some interesting choices or some calculated based on ADP choices. And so we get Allen at the 204. Okay, we are moving right along here. Maybe I should have made it like a minute and a half so I could actually take a second to talk about things, but it's no big deal. We'll just run it. We'll just talk about it after everything's over. Allen at 204, AJ Brown at 205, Bowers 206, Lamar 207, Jacobs 208, Kyron 209, Taylor 210. Steve, I like your pick of Achane of 211. That might be my favorite value of the round. I think Achane should be a high second round pick. I think he's going to be, if Tua is healthy, which is a massive if. But if Tua can make it through, maybe not all of the season, but most of the season, Jonnu Smith is gone. Those additional targets are going to go to Achane. He's clear top dog in the backfield. I think he's going to catch a ton of passes. I like the Achane pick. What do I have? What do I have going on here? All right. So Amari Hampton did last this long. I've seen him start to go like this high, like in that early third round range. So to be able to still get him at this point of a draft, I would say the computer, obviously with nine computers, just they're just going line by line. They're not factoring in outlier factors and developing stories, all that good stuff. Basically, Amari Hampton is still kind of buried here. This is an auto smash for me. If you are drafting late third round in a few weeks from now and Hampton is still available on the board, he would be it's like auto hammer. Just add him to your team. And it comes back to me. I am in the fourth round and a third round. I think a wide receiver with third round capital and Garrett Wilson is still available to me. Options around me are Terry McLaurin, who has a contract situation, Devontae Adams. I could, but I don't know that he's going to be his team's wide receiver 1. He is in a better situation than Garrett Wilson, but Wilson is going to have a dominant wide receiver 1 target share. I think he should 160, 170 targets is not out of the realm of possibility for Garrett Wilson with nothing else behind him in the pecking order. I expect Justin Fields to lock in on him this year. And so I will take a wide receiver that I regularly see go in the third round. I will take him in the fourth round. it'll be easier for me to talk about the full draft after it goes, after we make it all the way through. So, and I'm just realizing these stupid emojis are in the way. So I'm going to, crap. Well, you have to be able to see. You got to be able to see the available players still. I think I have as many teams effectively like filled in on this screen share as I possibly can get. And if anybody has any questions or comments, obviously feel free to share them in the chat, and I will comment on them as I can. Yeah, Kamara in the 4th round is pretty good value at this point. Obviously, there's some questions about the Saints offense in general, but there are no questions about Kamara and how effective he can still be as a pass catcher, as a safety valve for these, for New Orleans young quarterbacks. But I think Devontae Adams is a solid consolation prize for you. I regularly see him going in the 3rd round of best ball leagues. So to get him on the back half of the 4th round, there's maybe a little bit of a concern about Matthew Stafford's back. He hasn't been practicing. He's not really getting involved in training camp practices all that much. But Stafford is like 37, 38 years old at this point. He's a vet. He's been around the block. Obviously, we hope he's okay. The Rams don't seem to be too concerned. That could also be them, poker facing the situation a little bit. But Adams is still good, still playing at a high level. If Stafford is okay, then Adams will be fine. What else do we have here? I probably would have taken Connor. I probably would have taken Connor here. So I'm looking down. So Sleeper's ADP is a little. I don't fully agree with some of the Sleeper's ADP. Like I would probably have Jameson Williams over Zay Flowers, just because I expect the passing volume in Detroit to be a little bit more than the passing volume in Baltimore. Lamar had a phenomenal season last year because he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, hands down. But there's like an even distribution there. So whereas I think there's a little bit more of a consolidated target share in Detroit. So I'm going to grab JMO for some upside. I didn't realize Pickens was still on the board. Womp womp. Okay, so I probably would have taken Pickens if I had realized he was still on the board. This is me. The computer is blasting through picks, and I only set the timer to a minute, so I'm kind of moving quickly here. I already do. I think I know where I'm going to go here. A lot of the frontline wide receivers are gone. I could go Chris Olave, but I'm a little worried about the overall quarterback play of the Saints. I like Olave in best ball a lot because I still believe in his talent, and I don't have to think about when I'm starting him or where I'm starting him in best ball. But in season long, it might be a little frustrating. I am going to take, I think, what is one of the darlings of training camp at this point in Travion Henderson, get another running back to my stable of backs. I fully expect him to take that job from Ramondre Stevenson pretty quickly. I don't think Stevenson goes away outright, but ball security issues continue to be a problem for him. Henderson is seems to be making headlines every training camp practice. They spent significant capital in him in the second round. The vibes are good. The vibes are good around Henderson. The pass catching depth in New England is questionable. I think that boosts Henderson's floor to catch a lot of passes. So I'm going to, I already did lock in an intriguing young running back with solid pass catching upside in Henderson. I will go over each of these teams. I'll go over each of these teams after the draft wraps. Again, if anybody has any questions or comments, drop them in the chat. This is an open forum for anything fantasy related. If you have any questions for me or if you have any comments, do not be shy. I thought it. Yeah, I don't mind Connor just because he's getting. I saw the comments about. I'm back on the clock. I know what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna take Calvin Ridley and then I'll talk about it later. But I'm gonna start first about finish my thought about James Conner. Yeah. Obviously, the quote, we're both RB1s. He's referring to Trey Benson. We're both gonna, I'm paraphrasing at this point, but he alluded to we're gonna both see a lot of opportunities this year. We're gonna see the ball a lot. We're both gonna handle a lot of carries, a lot of opportunities. He didn't verbatim, but this was kind of what he was alluding to. He called himself and Trey Benson co RB1s or both RB1s. That's great that we feel like Trey Benson is taking a step forward in his second year, in his second offseason, his second training camp. I still think James Conner is getting paid top 8 money in the league. And so I'm just going to follow the money there. The Cardinals are paying Conner to be their bell cow. I think they will still I thought I starred Calvin Ridley. I didn't want Chris Godwin. Sleeper. Oh, crap. Well, now I got to turn the auto off. How do I turn the auto off? No. I thought because I had him did I have to hit? I had to hit this, didn't I? Damn it. I had to hit this little the note icon. Oh my God. I didn't want Chris Godwin there. I was trying to take Calvin Ridley there. And then I was too quick to react to the auto, and I ended up with Kyler, which is fine. I'm not crazy about it, but I guess it's okay. I was more looking along the lines of getting somebody later, but we'll keep it moving. So that's my bad. I clicked the wrong icon that I thought had the player queued. I wanted to draft Calvin Ridley. But that didn't go as planned because I clicked the wrong Q icon. So now I have Chris Godwin, which I would not advise doing, even late 7th round. Maybe if I could get him a round and a half cheap, if I could get him in the 8th round, okay, maybe. But Stephon Diggs is right there, and Stephon Diggs is going to get a wide receiver 1 target share in New England, and I'd rather take the shot on a healthy Diggs than a questionable Chris Godwin. So that's just me not clicking the correct icon to queue these players properly. So that's my bad. Yeah. But anyway, to finish my thought on Connor, I'm okay with James Conner because the Cardinals are still paying him to be a bell cow, to be one of those top flight, bell cow running backs. What in the world am I going to do now that I had these 2 picks that I didn't want to make? There's so many good quarterback options in one quarterback. I didn't want to draft Kyler, but that's just, again, that's my bad. That's my fault. Their ADP sleepers is all over the place. I don't want Brandon Ayuk here. I like Josh Downs a lot. I don't know if I want to take him over Michael Pittman, though, who we were drafting in the 3rd round just last year. And he returned to practice. I do like Josh Downs, though. All right, I'll take the player I prefer. I don't want Brandon Ayuk, especially when now I have Chris Godwin. If you invest in one dude whose health is questionable coming into the season, leave it at that. Do not double dip on players that are coming into the season having or are nursing or rehabbing from a significant injury. If you take Chris Godwin, do not take Brandon Ayuk, and vice versa. Or Darnell Mooney, who is dealing with a shoulder injury. or Joe Mixon, who's dealing with an ankle injury, even though it sounds like his availability for week 1 is still possible. This is a rare situation where I think I'm comfortable drafting 2 receivers from the same team back to back, even though we have serious quarterback questions, because I think these are the 2 starters for the Colts. I am punting on tight end very, like somewhat intensely now, by the way, which I didn't really intend to do, but here we are. I need to get back to getting some running back depth. I do not like how this turned out after I ended up with those Godwin and Murray autos, but c'est la vie. I got to stop crying about spilt milk. Of course, now the defenses are coming into the picture. I'm just trying to see if there's anybody who is like way down here that I think is mispriced. Here's that sleeper tight end that I could still grab. I know some of you are in here listening to my thoughts, and if you take them, that's totally fine. But if you already have a tight end, then you may not want to get another one. Yeah, nobody's really jumping off the page here. Oh, Devin Neal is another injury update. I think he hamstring. Yeah, to miss a few weeks. So even more of a reason to feel better about Alvin Kamara. The Saints are probably very close to, if not already, embracing a youth movement, even though Kamara's still on the roster. Devin Neal would be one of those young guys you would figure they'd like to get a look at some point. Here's another guy that I quite like as a punt at tight end. Yeah, between guys like Brenton Strange and Jatavian Sanders and Jake Ferguson, there's a lot of dart throw tight ends that I like this year. All right, what am I doing here? I know what I want to take Rashid Shaheed. I really should start grabbing some running back depth because I only have 3. They're 3 good ones and 3 guys that I would expect to lean on with this team. So maybe I will grab. Okay, there's some running backs down here that I like. Maybe I'm going to grab Rashid Shaheed. I know I mentioned I'm worried about Olave on a week-to-week basis. The same applies to Shaheed. Just because I don't know, nobody knows how good, if they are any good, the Saints quarterbacks are. So week to week, the Saints wide receivers are going to be tough to trust. At least the opportunity cost for Shaheed is 5 rounds different from Olave, and I like Rashid Shaheed. So this is a fine dart throw for me to take. And now I am going to get a depth running back that I quite like. I put out a video. Well, I cut up a highlight from a previous live stream. I am a little bit concerned about James Cook this year. I think there's some touchdown regression that is coming, and I think Ray Davis is a solid player behind him. Obviously, in redraft, you want to maybe better identify handcuffs, but I think Ray Davis could have some real standalone value if he gets his shot, if he gets his opportunity. So I'll take a shot on Ray Davis. The countdown clicker is clicking in my headphones. I think the draft is glitching out a little bit here. Yeah, I like I'm gonna identify or try to get one of my depth tight ends here with my next pick. I'll look for a defense in another pick, and then I'm not gonna draft a kicker, even though it's just practice. My preference is to try to identify somebody who is pup list eligible and stash them on, like, I can stash them on pup after the draft and pick up a kicker later. Had a potential stack with Rashad Bateman sniped away by the computer. The countdown timer is like still clicking in my ears, even though I haven't made a pick for like 10 picks now. There goes Brenton Strange. Well, that's okay, because and Isaiah Likely would be in this conversation. He's also missing time. Mason Taylor is missing time. So I will reach all the way down if I can find him and take my guy, take my dart throw at tight end. Let's see. We can look for defenses. I think a cheap defense I don't mind targeting for at least week 1 is Arizona, because they play the Saints. And if there is any offense, or whoever's playing the Browns and the Jets, like the Bengals are playing the, okay, well, I don't want to play the Bengals defense because we all expect them to be terrible. The Jets are playing the Steelers week 1. Okay, I mean, the Steelers are a pretty chalky, traditionally year-over-year defense to grab, and here they are, and it's just a mock, so whatever. Let's grab Pittsburgh. But if you miss out on, Philly, the Steelers, the Broncos, the Lions, we're expecting the Lions to be a good defense once again. I don't mind the Cardinals as like a sneaky week 1 defense, just for the sole purpose of they're playing the Saints. They're playing the Saints. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I don't know how healthy Chris Olave is. I don't know how healthy Rashid Shaheed is. I don't know how good that offensive line is going to be. The Cardinals are a decent target for that first weekend. And then I have, I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 7 receivers and 4 running backs, so I should finish this off with a running back. Let's see. Who do we have here? I'll take a Dylan Sampson. Obviously, Quinshon Judkins is a major question mark at this point. At least it's another rookie coming in, potentially getting opportunities behind Jerome Ford. I'll take Dylan Sampson. That stupid ticking is like still in my ear. I hope it's not the case for you guys. All right, I turned the audio off. That probably hopefully helped. Okay, so here is the results from our first mock draft of the season. First face mask mock draft of the season anyway. 9 computers, so some decent amount of auto picking happened, and unfortunately I think we lost Crumply Heads right off the top, even though he joined. So that might have been so it's probably 9 auto drafts instead of 8. But nevertheless, I won't spend too much time on the AI builds, just because it's computers that did it, but I will comment all the same, because you might be looking at them and thinking to yourself, like, that might be my strategy. So team 1. So again, start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, and a tight end, a flex, kicker, defense. Even though we start 3 wide receivers, the computer kicked things off with Saquon, ended up with Ladd McConkey at the end of round 2, paired that with Bucky at the top of round 3, Chuba Hubbard, Sam Laporta, Jerry Jeudy, Jordan Addison, Justin Herbert, Jaden Reed. I like Jaden Reed in the 9th round. That feels like solid value. I know Jaden Reed is a bit gadgety, but he is a big-time player. That he went through portions of the season last year, or at least early on, without Jordan Love. So I think his numbers took a solid hit because of the Jordan Love injury. So we're expecting some positive regression, I think, for Jaden Reed and this Packers offense in general. So I do like that value of Jaden Reed in the 9th round. Ferguson in the 10th round is decent. Obviously, the arrival of George Pickens takes some opportunities away from Ferguson, but at least he's cheap. Spears, Dowdle, decent cheap running back depth. Luther Burden, dirt cheap wide receiver depth. I'm okay with that. Running backs are good. I have some question marks about the wide receiver depth. Will Jeudy catch the ball from Joe Flacco all year, or are we going to get some mixture of Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, and that kind of submarines the pass catchers in this offense? Addison, I mentioned I like Addison, but you better have a backup plan, a solid backup plan if you draft Jordan Addison, because he's going to miss the first 3 games. So while I don't mind the pick in a vacuum, make sure you have good backup. Jaden Reed, he represents solid backup. Waiting then until the 13th round to get to get more depth than grabbing a rookie and Luther Burden, who might be slow out of the gate, I don't like that as much. So now for the first 3 weeks, Team 1 is starting Ladd McConkey, Jaden Reed, and Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver. I like Ladd, and I like these 3 players individually, and Ladd is awesome. I just don't know if that is enough for me, having to start 3 wide receivers for the first 3 weeks of the season. So your flex is fine because you could start Saquon, Bucky, and Chuba, but that filling those wide receiver spots with McConkey, Jeudy, and Jaden Reed, you're banking on Jeudy to continue on an unprecedented run last year with probably worse quarterback play, unless it's Joe Flacco, and then Jaden Reed is, again, I like, and I like the value. I'd almost rather maybe wait a week or 2 before I actually plug him into my starting lineup, just to see what the Packers offense looks like with the addition of Matthew Golden. So it's okay. It's not bad. It's not great. It's also just a computer. Let's see. Steve at spot 2 went Jamar Chase, Devon Achane, Chase Brown. I like that start. Then grabbed Xavier Worthy and the Mahomes stack in rounds 4 and 5. Ingram in round 6 should catch a lot of passes for the Broncos. Debo and Cooper Kupp, 2 veteran wide receivers who are they both have something to prove this year. Debo had a bad year last year. Kupp had an okay year last year, but now moves from a Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford offense to a Sam Darnold-led offense in Seattle, so a little less exciting. And now, of course, obviously, Kupp is older. Scatabo in round 9, Bigsby in round 10. I love that pick. I would say Achane and Bigsby are maybe my favorite picks that you made, Steve. Achane because I think he should have just gone in the second round higher, and Bigsby because if I'm taking one dart throw at the Jags backfield, he's the guy I want. He is the cheapest, and he seems to be getting a lot of first team opportunities. So I quite like Bigsby. You double dipped at tight end, grabbing Pitts after grabbing Engram. That's not my preferred strategy. If that's what you feel comfortable doing, or again, it's just practice, it's just a mock draft, you want to see how it looks, totally go for it. I wouldn't advise that in the real thing, the real situation. But obviously, the Kyle Pitts hype it's making its headway. Run once again. We're back on that horse of Kyle Pitts, right? Michael Penix is throwing him the ball. He's saying that we're going to see that a lot this year. We're getting really excited about Kyle Pitts. He's still only 24 years old. There's lots of reasons to stay excited about Kyle Pitts, but then, we'll see what happens. He does, hopefully, Michael Penix presents the best quarterback play that Kyle Pitts will have since Matt Ryan. So, there is real reason for optimism as opposed to, the likes of Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. They did sign Kirk Cousins at the start last year, obviously, and that didn't quite work out for Pitts either. So maybe Michael Penix is the the good luck charm, the unlocker of Kyle Pitts. But I wouldn't double dip on tight end. In a redraft league, especially when I already spent a 6th round pick on a tight end. I would just let it lie at that point. It's like Evan Ingram's the tight end I drafted. He's the guy I'm going to go into the season with. That's my approach. If it doesn't work out, I'll find another tight end on waivers. Obviously, your thought might be, well, that's why I drafted Kyle Pitts. Fine. I might go, grab another wide receiver there. But again, this is just practice. Rounded it out with Broncos. Aubrey is probably the best kicker in the league, so no issues there. And then McMillan and Dobbs, some wide receiver depth just to round things out. Some young wide receiver depth to round things out. So I'm good with that. I like the team. Chase is a stud. I like Achane. I like Chase Brown. I think your running backs are solid. I think you got good running back depth. I think wide receiver depth is okay. You need one of Debo or Kupp to work out. If you only get one of them, honestly, great, because you already have Chase and Worthy. And I'm always a proponent of stacks, so Worthy and Mahomes, solid pairing there. Running back group, I really like. Wide receivers, solid. You're banking on one of Debo or Kupp, and then hopefully that works out. I will jump to Crumply Head's team and Ravens Flock's team before I look at the other computers, because they are actual people who did actual drafts, and I don't want to keep them waiting at the expense of listening to more feedback about the draft that the computer had. Crumply Heads did auto, but Crumply Heads is a longtime follower of the channel, and so we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, even though there was an auto draft there, and we're going to give him thoughts on the team right now. Bijan Robinson, we're going to say his name the way he asked us to say it. At the 104, you could take Robinson as high as first overall. So to get him at 4, I'm sure you're perfectly happy with that. No issues. He's going to be probably a lot of people's RB1 overall coming into the year. He probably has the fewest red flags. He's young. He doesn't have an overwhelming workload from last year, and there's high expectations for this Falcons offense to score lots of points. So no issues with that. Kyron Williams in round 2. Now, again, you auto-drafted Crumply Head, so maybe you wouldn't have done this, but I would have taken Taylor over him. I would have taken Achane over him. I probably would have taken Chase Brown over him as well. Maybe not Bucky. I would certainly have taken Taylor and Achane over Kyron. Now, of course, we just talked about it. Kyron got paid. He got the contract. He got the guaranteed money. So an investment from the team is a vote of confidence. We like that. We feel good about that. I still don't know that I would take him over Taylor or Achane, but that's how the cookie crumbled. I do like the T. Higgins slide to the 304. He's being drafted generally as a wide receiver 1. We expect big numbers from this Bengals passing offense over the course of the season. If Higgins is healthy, and Higgins has on top of Kyren, another guy that has his money, he has his contract in T. Higgins, so he can just go out there and focus on ball. So I'm good with that. And attached to Joe Burrow, you expect them to put up big numbers every week. We expect this passing offense to be elite, high end, and regularly having to keep their foot on the gas because we don't expect this Bengals defense, to be very good. Rice at the 409. At this point, I know it's a mock and Crumplyhead's auto drafted, but I would take Worthy over Rice at this point. We could be looking at a 4 to 6 game suspension from Rashee Rice. The penalty for Rice's incident, typically we're looking at a 6 game suspension. And then, of course, expectations for some type of punishment to be handed down were fast-tracked earlier just a few weeks ago. So we're expecting Rice to miss time. He's also coming off of an injury from last year that forced him to miss the rest of the season. I think he suffered it week 5 or 6. So it was early on. So he's been rehabbing an injury and now there's off-field issues. So I wouldn't be drafting Rice here. I would need him to slide a little bit farther for me to feel good about taking him. That goes double for Joe Mixon. Now, obviously in the 5th, redraft, we're always going to be prioritizing running backs. We want to get 3 with our first 5 or 6 picks. But Mixon dealing with an ankle injury, I've seen things that he's week 1 is still on the table. He might be available for the first week of the season, but this is a lingering injury from last year. And, Mixon is not a spring chicken anymore at running back. I think he's 29. A lot of work, like a lot of tread on those tires. Yeah, he's 29. He just turned 29 just a couple of weeks ago, Joe Mixon did. But his availability for week 1 is in question. Will he make it through most of the season, if not all of the season? That is in question. So, the Rashee Rice, Joe Mixon double up is not something that I would be pursuing. But again, it's just a mock. So we'll see, we'll see how things shake out for these guys. Rome Odunze is a popular breakout candidate for a lot of people. They 9th overall pick in the 2024 draft. In comes Ben Johnson from Detroit now as Chicago's head coach. We're expecting a bit of a rebirth of that offense. Keenan Allen is gone. There's been questions about DJ Moore and how much the coaching staff wants to wants to believe in him. Ben Johnson has said positive things about Odunze. So, there's reasons for optimism. Positive vibes with Odunze's offseason so far. But, in this instance, at least for week 1, you're asking him to be your wide receiver 2. That feels I would really want a beefed up running back core to hang my hat on if Rome Odunze is my wide receiver 2. And taking Kyren over Taylor and Achane, and then also taking Mixon when you have Rashee Rice. I don't love the top of this auto draft. Obviously, it's an auto draft. You're kind of Crumplyheads getting the feedback of a computer doing this for you, but not in love with like the top of these picks so far, particularly because of Kyren, Rice, and Mixon. And I like Kyren, but I'd rather have Taylor and Achane. DeAndre Swift, so another Bear the very next round. We'll see. The Bears did not invest heavy draft capital in running backs. They didn't really do much in free agency, so Swift figures to remain atop the depth chart after wide speculation at the beginning of the offseason that the Bears would look to add to their running back room, maybe replace Swift outright. That didn't happen. However, Ben Johnson was DeAndre Swift's coach, offensive coordinator, I think, in Detroit. And we saw Swift get put in the doghouse. He was exciting. He flashed big plays, but he was inconsistent. And so he was a frustrating fantasy asset to have. And that kind of hasn't wavered. He's kind of, Swift has settled in as like a low end RB2 for fantasy purposes. Maybe he's that again. I wouldn't be surprised to see Roschon Johnson, get some opportunities. The rookie, oh my God, Monangai, is that who it is? Could potentially get involved, even though his draft capital isn't super strong. The possibility exists that he finds his way into a role sooner than later, given the history between Ben Johnson and DeAndre Swift. Jonnu at tight end, and then Dalton Kincaid a couple of rounds later. Jonnu's ADP and value have plummeted since the trade from Miami to Pittsburgh. Maybe too far, just because we can expect the Steelers to heavily utilize Jonnu. They traded for him. Arthur Smith is still their offensive coordinator. He loves Jonnu. He has a history with Jonnu dating back to his time in Tennessee and Atlanta. So then he goes out of his way to trade for him now as the offensive coordinator for Pittsburgh. We're not expecting the target share for Jonnu in Pittsburgh that he received in Miami. So stock down. We might be overreacting as a consensus to how far Jonnu is falling down the board. Nevertheless, this is probably still a little too high for him. I would take Njoku. I would take Warren. I would take Loveland, Kraft, some of these other guys that were taken after Jonnu Smith. I would take those guys probably ahead of Jonnu. Maybe I take Jonnu over like a Dalton Kincaid, who you also ended up with, Crumbly Head. So, just double dipping on these tight ends that I don't really have a whole lot of interest in drafting. Purdy and Stroud at quarterback, took some quarterback value, sure. Eckler, decent running back depth. The problem is you invested heavy in running backs early, so I would have maybe preferred to see a wide receiver here, because you didn't. The computer didn't draft you another wide receiver, so now it's T. Higgins, Rome Odunze, and if Rashee Rice misses week 1, now it's like, okay, I don't have a wide receiver 3 on the roster. So, yeah, I don't. The computer did not do you any favors, Crumbly Heads. I am sorry to report. All right, jumping to Ravens flock, team 6. I love the Christian McCaffrey pick. As awesome as Jahmyr Gibbs is, and I'm very happy to have ended up with Gibbs at 10. When I did my running back rankings last week, I listed McCaffrey ahead of Gibbs. McCaffrey, I think, when healthy, still has RB1 overall upside. Jahmyr Gibbs, I believe, finished as the RB1 overall last year. Could do it again. David Montgomery did miss a few games, and it's probably a good bet to miss 2 or 3 games per season, especially at this point of his career. He's been around the block for a little while, a little wear and tear for David Montgomery, some tread on the tires. So for him to miss 3 or 4 games a year, probably expected at this point. That might be all Gibbs needs to finish his RB1 overall, but that's just it. Christian McCaffrey has no competition in that backfield, especially given Isaac Orendo's shoulder injury. So, and they need him. Like the 49ers need McCaffrey badly. Debo gone. Ayuk rehabbing. Jawan Jennings is dealing with a hamstring injury, I think, or a knee injury, or calf injury. Sorry, I think it's a calf injury. Calf injury that he also was dealing with last year. It's the same one that's bothering him this year. And there's rumors and speculation out there that he's asked for a contract extension. There could be some off-field stuff brewing for him. And then Ricky Pearsall is practicing, but he spent some time just last week on the PUP list. So, all this to say, the 49ers need Christian McCaffrey in the worst way. I think they're going to take one last shot, one last hurrah with McCaffrey as far as giving him a bell cow yeoman's level workload. One, because they still have Super Bowl aspirations, and 2, if they're going to do that, they need Christian McCaffrey. And with him having no competition for touches, whereas Gibbs does still have a David Montgomery to compete with for touches, I I like the pick of McCaffrey at 106. Lamar at 207. I personally wouldn't go this high at quarterback in a one quarterback league. Now, Lamar is excellent. Top 3 quarterback in the league and top 3 quarterback for fantasy as well. Overall, QB1 upside any week, any given season. Could be the MVP any given year. That's how freaking good Lamar is. Maybe one of the other computers would have taken him before you had the chance to get him back in the 3rd round, especially considering Allen went at 204. All this to say, I love Lamar. It's not about Lamar. It's just about opportunity cost. And in a one quarterback league, I'm not crazy about spending a 2nd round pick on a quarterback. That's just me. That being said, he is a difference maker. He is a stud. He is one of the best players in the league. Perennial MVP candidate. There's not too many guys that can throw for almost 4,000 yards and then run for another 800-900 and total like 35 to 40 touchdowns or 40 to 45 touchdowns even. That's how freaking good Lamar is. So I get it. I just would prefer to find another quarterback a little bit later. It's just opportunity cost. That's all it is. Smith and Jigba, Adams, Sutton. So wide receiver, rounds 3 through 5. I like that strategy. I like that approach. And I like the guys that you got. Now, Smith and Jigba's problem is Sam Darnold worth a damn? Is he worth freaking anything? He was a bust up to last year in his time with Minnesota. Gets to be a part of a Kevin O'Connell-led offense. Gets to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and eventually TJ Hawkinson, and had a little bit of a career resurgence, a little more than a little bit. He parlayed it into a huge contract with Seattle this year. But now he's out of that cushy situation. He's not in the friendly confines anymore. He's not in the dome in Minnesota getting coached up by a quarterback guru and Kevin O'Connell. Now he's in Seattle, right? Wet, rainy, windy Seattle. And so it's not Smith and Jigba so much for me as it is can Darnold do it? Is Darnold good enough to get his wide receiver 150 targets? I would hope so. And I'm not fading. Let me make it very clear. I'm not fading Smith and Jigba. I am perfectly fine taking him here. I have no problem with that whatsoever. It's just I do have questions about the rest of the offense, the rest of the situation, specifically Sam Darnold. Is he capable? Is he competent? Hopefully, because there's not really much else for him to work with in this offense outside of Smith and Jigba in the passing game anyway. And then Adams, veteran stud. You know, the stuff with Matthew Stafford is a bit of a concern. His back injury, he's not practicing. I will continue to trust that this is just an older quarterback who doesn't need as much time to get ready for the start of the season, and that the team wants to be cautious with, and they're taking their time. I am continuing to lean that is actually the case, that there's not something bigger going on here. And therefore, I'm fine with drafting Puka in the 1st round. I'm fine with drafting Davante Adams in the 4th round. I would have taken him. I would have taken him over Terry McLaurin. I would have taken him over Jalen Hurts. I might not take him over George Kittle. I might take him over Mike Evans. Yeah, I mean, I like. This is to say, I like Adams. I think it's a good pick. He's still good. No reason to believe in any drop off yet, and it's a good offense. Sean McVay led offense. So as long as Stafford is okay, I'm fine with it. And then Sutton, you know, a team's wide receiver 1 in the 5th round. Bo Nix is good. We got confirmation of that last year. Bo Nix is a good quarterback. There were a lot of questions about Bo Nix and whether he would make it at the NFL level. he might have silenced those questions in just one season. He looked good last year. There's reason to believe in the Broncos offense with Sean Payton and now Bo Nix as their signal caller. So Sutton as your clear-cut wide receiver 1, and the team invested in him this year with a new contract. So I like this approach. I like these wide receivers. Kelce in the 6th round. You're obviously hoping that that the drop-off in ADP isn't reflective of what he has left in the tank, because just last year, Kelce was still getting drafted late 1st, early 2nd round on the back of like one of the best 3 or 4 year stretches we'll ever see from a tight end over the past, dating back to like 2019 or so, or maybe even sooner. Kelce's a 6th round pick for the first time, ever? I don't know that he's ever been available this late in drafts. Obviously, he's older now. He's in the twilight of his career. He may only have this year left. It's not out of the realm of possibility he retires after this year. So, he is getting long in the tooth. He's getting up there in age. And so his talent is ability and all that stuff is drying up a little bit, but still a savvy vet, a surefire future Hall of Famer who knows the inside and out, could probably like roll out of bed and half asleep be able to play the tight end position. So, you trust the veteran aspect of a Travis Kelce, and you're just hoping that the physical ability hasn't fallen off too far with this ADP. I don't mind the shot on Kelce, especially at the time that you got him, before we kind of started to see, a bit of a drop off as far as like the tight end tiers would go. So I like, I don't mind the shot there. I like the Caleb Johnson pick. So you went hero running back again with McCaffrey first with your first pick, and then not grabbing running back again until the 7th. That said, I like Caleb Johnson. The vibes around Caleb Johnson are good. There was a report from the Steelers beat reporter that was quoted by Underdog NFL on Twitter or X, that the expectation basically is Caleb will be involved early and should just take the job outright as the season progresses. The Steelers made him a 3rd round pick. They have a history of running the football well. Aaron Rodgers running backs typically do well for fantasy. Caleb Johnson just needs some seasoning, maybe particularly in the pass protection department. So once he starts to learn the full scope of playing running back at the NFL level, I have no reason to believe why Caleb doesn't become the primary runner for the Steelers sooner than later. So I like that pick. Jacoby Myers, rock solid. Always outperforms his ADP. And after Brock Bowers, no clear-cut pass catcher in this offense that challenges for targets. I mean, there's been some hype around Jack Besh. There's been some hype around Dante Thornton. Quarterback Geno Smith was singing the praises of Trey Tucker earlier today. All that to say, like these, and it's fun to get excited about rookies and young players. Trey Tucker's not a rookie, but he's a younger player. It's excited. There's reason to get excited about young players, the optimism, the unknown that comes with it. Jacoby Myers is a savvy vet at this point. Damn good receiver. The number 1 receiver, not number 1 pass catcher, that's Brock Bowers, but number 1 wide receiver for the Raiders. So he should get an adjusted wide receiver 1 target share, because Bowers is going to get all the targets he can handle. But Myers, savvy vet, always outperforms expectations. So I like that pick quite a bit. Javonte in the 9th round, I like it a lot more because you got Jaden Blue a couple rounds later. You just grab that backfield, and whoever works out is the guy that you'll move forward with. You don't care who it is. If Javonte shows out and does well and holds the starting job for the first 5-6 weeks of the season, Javonte's in consideration for your starting lineup each week. If Jaden Blue, as a rookie, takes over, Javonte might be shot. He might be, he might that injury, the knee injury from a couple of years ago, might have done it for him. As far as physical ability, we haven't seen Javonte perform at a high level the past couple of years. Maybe he can find a little bit of a rebirth in Dallas, even though that offensive line is not expected to be very good. So I could easily see Jaden Blue beating him in a competition for more touches. Maybe not necessarily week one, but as the season moves along. So grabbing both of those guys, and it's like, hey, whoever ends up being the guy is the dude that I'll move forward with. So I like that strategy. Egbuka in the 10th round, really good value. Chris Godwin, we have no idea when he's going to be able to come back. Again, we got the positive update for his that he's moving through their rehab process and he's checking all the boxes and he's clearing benchmarks and all that stuff. But they didn't outright confirm that means that he's going to be good to go for the start of the season. So Egbuka looks like a solid late round wide receiver target, and getting him in the 10th round, I think that's pretty damn good. Trey Benson, another young running back. Yep, take a shot on it. He could be, maybe he is a co-RB1 with James Conner. Maybe the team feels good enough about him in his second season to lean on him if there's a game or two that James Conner has to miss, which Conner misses usually 2 to 3 games per year traditionally. And especially now that he's getting a little bit older, I think Trey Benson is decent depth to have. You also grabbed Brenton Strange, who I was looking at this round. You went ahead and grabbed him. Nicely done. Good dart throw at tight end. Again, I don't typically advise, or at least for me, I don't go the route of drafting 2 tight ends unless they are drafted in the 12th and 13th round, the 13th and 14th round. In this instance, you drafted Kelsey, and obviously there's questions about Kelsey. Age, is the performance, is his ability and physical ability still going to be up to snuff? Can we still expect big things from Travis Kelsey on a week-to-week basis? So I get it, wanting to protect it, wanting to protect that draft pick. That being said, I typically opt for, if I draft a tight end before round 9 or 10, that's my tight end, at least for the first couple weeks of the season. And if it doesn't work out, I'll figure it out on waivers then. And I'll draft 2 tight ends if I don't draft any before round 10. Like, round 11, 12, 13, 14, yeah, I'll take 2 tight ends. Sure, no problem. But if I take one in the first 60, 70, even 80 picks of the draft, I'm drafting that guy in theory to be my guy for at least the first couple of weeks. So that's the only thing. Obviously, in this particular instance, I get it. Kelsey, older, questions. So it's, I see the strategy. Hopkins for some cheap wide receiver depth and a stack with Lamar, so no problem with that. And then you opted for the Ravens' new kicker over drafting a defense. That might not be a bad play. The Ravens and the Bills play each other week 1, so we can expect some scoring, a decent amount of scoring in that game. So I don't mind the dart throw. I don't mind the shot. I will typically, whether it's with a defense or a kicker, usually with a kicker, I'll usually forego drafting a kicker and I'll draft a defense, and then I will draft an IR eligible player, stash that player in IR, and then pick up my kicker after I've had some time to look at their situation going into the week. But you can do the same strategy with defenses, to be honest. You can look at the matchup on paper and say, this one is favorable. This is the one that I prefer over grabbing like a tried and true name like the Baltimore Ravens. I don't want to draft the Ravens defense this year because week 1, they play the Buffalo Bills. I just don't want to deal with my starting defense playing Josh Allen week 1. Now, Baltimore will likely be a super trendy pickup for week 2. And then you're going to have teams who draft them, but then also draft a second defense or pick up a second defense to start week 1. But then now you got 2 roster spots to 2 defenses. And it's just like, that's That's one roster spot too many for defenses or kickers for my liking. So, I like for example, the Arizona Cardinals are a defense that I don't mind this year for week 1 because they're playing the New Orleans Saints. They're not going to be on a whole lot of radars though, because they're the Arizona Cardinals. They're not traditionally a very good defense. They're not a name that stands out like a Pittsburgh, a Philly, a Baltimore, a San Francisco, a Minnesota, a Chicago. That's not we're not lumping Arizona in that category ever. But they've got a great favorable matchup week 1 against a very questionable Saints offense. So like that's the type of defense that I would maybe target. And again, you don't have to, if you want to do this strategy of, well, yeah, I'll draft a kicker, but I'm not going to draft a defense. There's your defense to target on waivers or to pick up after the draft, like in Arizona. And you could do the same thing. You could draft like the Steelers defense. You feel good about them. They're a rock solid defense year over year. And then I'll draft another position player, put them on IR, and grab a kicker. So it's interchangeable. You could do what you want from that point. And you got all right. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining the draft. Appreciate you sticking around. Thanks for the engagement. And yeah, I will do. I'll do a couple more of these over the course of the month as we inch closer and closer to draft season. Let me take a look at these other teams. Team 3. I skipped over. I went through teams 2, 4, and 6 for the guys that joined the mock draft. So Steve, Crumply Heads, and Ravens Flock. Thank you guys. Appreciate your joining the draft and hanging out during it. So team 3: Jefferson, Taylor, McBride, Metcalf, Walker, Waddle, round 6. Yeah, I like that start. Walker has me a little nervous. He's got it all in his young career already, a pretty lengthy injury history, and he's missing time in camp now. I don't know. I kind of like Charbonnet as a depth running back to target over Walker. I have liked Walker. I want to like Walker. The lengthy injury history, and now he's dealing with more injury issues. If he fell into the 6th round, okay, maybe. But Walker doesn't get me super excited. Waddle I like as a bounce back candidate in the 6th round, especially with Jonnu Smith getting traded to Pittsburgh. So I don't mind the Waddle pick. I'm okay with that. Judkins in the 7th round is just a computer, just reading the chalk play and making the pick. Judkins should be pretty far off your boards at this point. He's not even technically a member of the team. He hasn't signed his contract. We will see what comes of the off-field situation, the domestic dispute that he's currently going through, and we'll see if we get any more information closer to season start. But he's not even under contract, so the Browns can't even have him in training camp participating in practices because he's not signed. He's not a member of the team. So, until the legal process plays out and until he actually gets a contract, or at least at last I checked, he hasn't been signed, right? Yeah, he's still unsigned due to the off-field stuff. Yeah, you can't have Quinshon Judkins on your board, unfortunately. You just can't. Goff is a boring quarterback in one quarterback leagues, pocket passer with no rushing upside. And with Ben Johnson gone, I need to see this offense before I invest in Goff in fantasy. Golden, Higgins, Coleman. I actually really like that wide receiver depth. Grabbing Justin Fields in the 12th round is I think actually pretty good value. Fields has had a rough go of it in camp recently. But the rushing upside is obviously huge for a guy like Fields. The fantasy numbers will be there at the end of the day. I would rather start Fields over Goff. I would have picked, one of these players right here, like a Jaden Reed, if I were team 3, and pass on Goff, and if you can get a guy like Fields this late. So good wide receivers. I don't like this team's running back depth. Team 5, CeeDee Lamb, Josh Jacobs, James Cook, DJ Moore, Devontae Smith, Chris Olave, Tony Pollard. I like this group. I don't love it. CeeDee and Jacobs are studs. I'm not crazy about James Cook this year because of the expected touchdown regression and the contract negotiation that is still ongoing. If the contract negotiation gets resolved sooner than later, then okay, at least the off-field stuff is taken care of. And when I say off-field, obviously it's not like a real off-field issue. It's a contract negotiation, but it is still something that is not on the field related. So it could be a distraction. We've seen contract negotiations in the past affect on-field performance. So I'm not crazy about James Cook in the 3rd round this year, especially because I don't know that we're getting 18 touchdowns again from James Cook. I would think there's touchdown regression coming. So not crazy about that. DJ Moore feels very boom bust right now. He's definitely a good enough player to be drafted higher than this. I just don't know that the vibes match that. I think Ben Johnson has been pretty hard on DJ Moore this offseason. Questions have started to rise about, DJ Moore's effort on certain plays, maybe like blocking on plays downfield. We saw that last year. It looked like he was maybe kind of mailing those situations in a little earlier than he should have. Obviously, last year was a lost year for them, and they had a horrendous coaching staff. So, hopefully Ben Johnson is lighting a fire under DJ Moore as opposed to hopefully not alienating him or pushing him away. So it's a little volatile right now, but obviously we know how talented DJ Moore is. So I don't hate that pick. I like the Devontae Smith pick a lot. I think the Eagles are going to throw the ball more this year than they had to last year. The Eagles were so dominant later in the season. I just don't expect that to stay the same year over year. You can expect a team to be good, but you can also expect that team to be in more competitive games than they were a season prior. And I think that's going to be the case. They have a tougher schedule. And I think that means that they're going to throw the ball more. The passing volume is going to be there. So I like the Devontae Smith pick. Again, I like Olave. The quarterback situation worries me week to week, but I do like Olave. And if he can get through the season healthy, that's a massive if for somebody who suffered so many concussions, unfortunately. If he can get through the season, I think he's going to be a pretty good value. It's just there might be some frustrating weeks to have him given the state of the Saints quarterback room. And then Pollard, no issues with that. Titans RB1. I think there's some good. I think there's a good mix that Team 5 had. Nixon May, Rashad White, Rashad Bateman, some decent depth at running back and wide receiver, and then a couple of tight ends in the 9th and 10th round in Njoku and Kraft. So, taking that 2 tight end approach a little earlier than I would. If I draft Njoku in the 9th round, I might just move forward with Njoku, but, obviously I get it. Njoku is in probably a bad offense, and if Joe Flacco's not playing, Njoku might not be playable. So dipping back into that and grabbing Tucker Kraft as a little bit of insurance. I get it. I went over Ravens flock. I like Ravens flock's team. I think it's pretty good. I don't know that I would draft Brenton Strange, having drafted Travis Kelce, and Lamar in the 2nd round is rich for a quarterback, but obviously he's a stud. And I like the rest of the approach of this this team. This strategy, I think, was well executed. Team 7, Amon-Ra, Brock Bowers, Marvin Harrison, and then and then kind of backfield running back in rounds 4, 5, and 6 with Kamara, Montgomery, and Aaron Jones. Three older guys, 3 vets. Although I think Montgomery is still only like 27, 28. And Kamara is like 29. I mean, they're old for running backs. They're not old otherwise. Amon-Ra, I wouldn't take Amon-Ra over Puka. So not crazy about that, but I do like the Bowers pick there. Bowers is incredible and deserving of that high ADP. So I like the Bowers pick. I like the Harrison pick as well, actually. I think he slid a little bit. You generally see Marvin Harrison go a little bit more closer to the top of the 3rd round. So getting him like mid to back half of the 3rd round, I think is decent value. Marvin is polarizing, right? His separation is an issue, getting away from opposing corners. He bulked up this offseason. I don't know that's necessarily going to help him with his separation, and then also the scheme, and then also Kyler. There's issues with the Kyler to Marvin Harrison connection, and will the offensive coordinator and the scheme and the approach actually get Marv a little bit more involved and make life a little easier for him? There's a lot of question marks. That said, I do still believe in the talent. So I don't mind the dart throw there. Kamara, Montgomery, Jones. I like Kamara. It's a bad offense, but he should come through with volume. I like Montgomery. He's a damn good player. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jahmyr Gibbs maybe take on more opportunities this year, just based on what's coming from the Lions and how they're talking about how they intend to run the offense. So Montgomery, he was a target for me last year. I'm not going out of my way to get him this year, but if healthy, he should still be a safe bet for 8 to 10 touchdowns. And then Aaron Jones has been my guy forever. Always been an Aaron Jones fan. There's been a lot of noise recently that Jordan Mason could potentially be taking over. But the Vikings did pay Jones decent money, and he's the significantly more proven player. So older, boring running backs with depreciated cost could work out. It could work out. Shakir, decent wide receiver depth. Baker and Caleb Williams. Double dipping at quarterback. See if one of those guys can work out. Baker was quite good last year. We'll see if he can keep things up. Caleb was not great, not terrible, but not great last year. We'll see if we can bounce back. I like the Tyler Warren pick at tight end. I like it less, though, because you already have Bowers. Like, this team already has Bowers. If I'm drafting Bowers in the 2nd round, there's no way I'm drafting another tight end. So I actually think that was a bit of a throwaway pick. And then some, Dobbins, Kirk, Besh depth. Not bad. Team 8 went 0 RB pretty hard, but I don't hate it. Puka, AJ, Tyreek is a great trio of wide receivers. You stacked A.J. Brown with Jalen Hurts. I know this is a computer. And then Tet McMillan. So that's your flex, I guess, as your wide receiver 4. You're banking on some young rookie upside as an ex-receiver for Bryce Young, who looked good the last couple of months of the season last year. Hawkinson at tight end, looking like a solid investment, especially for the first 3 weeks of the season with no Jordan Addison. Hawkinson should be corralling a lot of opportunities and a lot of targets as the number 2 weapon in the pecking order for at least the first 3 weeks. So I actually like this start quite a bit for Team 8. And then this is where I kind of question what they were doing. But again, it's a computer. Brian Robinson, Najee Harris. Robinson, I'm fine with. Najee, I can't draft Najee in the 8th round right now. We don't know if when he's going to play, when he's going to suit up, when he's going to practice, or how serious his eye injury is. So I don't love that. I don't mind the approach, like the 0 RB approach, but I don't like Harris as I'd much rather have like a Scatabo as my running back here over a guy like Najee Harris. So yeah, I probably would have taken like Jordan Mason here or Zach Charbonnet. Like this team went hard at wide receiver four of your first 5 picks, it's okay to get some extra depth. But I like this Trey Harris. That's fine. Ricky Pearsall, I like Ricky Pearsall, but given this team's build, I might have taken a running back here. And then I would not have taken Colston Loveland. I would have taken 2 running backs here with picks 9 and 10 to offset the running backs that I didn't draft at the top of the draft. And then I wouldn't have drafted Dak if I already have Hurts. Yeah, I would have drafted. I like this team's start through round 7. And then round 8 on, it's like I'd rather have a different running back, a running back instead of a wide receiver, a running back instead of a tight end, a running back instead of a quarterback. Like Trey Harris is fine as a wide receiver dart throw. I would have not drafted Loveland and Prescott, and I probably would not have drafted Pearsall either, given the heavy investment early in wide receiver. So I like the start of that team. I don't like the end of it. Let's see. Team 9. Probably not another one tonight, Steve, but thanks for sticking around and hanging out. I'm definitely happy to kick off another one on Thursday. I will be back on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern. And then I can run a couple more over the course of the month. As we move closer and closer to draft season. So I can definitely kick another one off on Thursday if you're able to make that one. But if not, I'll plan to have more mock drafts next week as well. So definitely can definitely kick off a few more over the course of the month. But appreciate you coming in and joining this one and being a part of it for sure. Let's see. Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's awesome. I wouldn't have taken him over Gibbs though. I would have taken Gibbs if I had been at the 109 spot. Josh Allen at the 204, really high. And then Breece Hall at the 309. Fine for the bounce, to take the shot on the bounce back. Terry McLaurin is in the middle of a heavy contract dispute with Washington. Would not have drafted him there. Connor, I like James Conner, so I don't mind the investment there. But then to go back to the well with Pacheco, now your wide receiver depth is going to hurt a little bit, especially given McLaurin's contract situation. It's hard to have faith in him. I don't mind the Mark Andrews in the 7th round at tight end, especially given Isaiah Likely's injury that could sideline him through week 1 or week 2. Hopefully Isaiah Likely comes back in time for the start of the season, but it's possible that this injury keeps him out for the first couple of weeks. That would be a short-term boost to Mark Andrews' stock, so I like the pick in the 7th round here. I like the pick of Stephon Diggs in the 8th round. I wish I would have much preferred to take him over Godwin in the 7th round if I had done the proper thing and, starred and cued the right guy. But Diggs is going to get a wide receiver 1 target share from Drake May in all likelihood. So I like that spot. I'm not in on Jawan Jennings. I feel like a lot has to go right for Jawan Jennings to have success, for consistent fantasy success this year. I did a video on why I'm fading Jawan Jennings this year. If you want to check it out for more information or more of my thoughts over there, it is on the channel. It's one of my recent videos if you want to check that out. But basically, I'm just, his consistency rating wasn't great last year. And, with a healthy Christian McCaffrey taking targets, with a healthy Ricky Pearsall taking targets, with George Kittle still doing his thing. Jennings was inconsistent last year, even with Debo being bad and Brandon Ayuk missing a lot of time. So I don't know that I want to invest in Jawan Jennings even at this price. Same with Darnell Mooney, who's dealing with a shoulder injury. This team took a lot of older players and or players who aren't practicing right now, either because of injury or because of a contract situation. I don't like Team 9. There are some individual players I like here, but I do not like the makeup and build of this team. I'll skip over my team for now. I'll do my team last. Team 11, Neighbors, London. Good start. Jaden Daniels. could be a superstar, but he doesn't currently have his wide receiver one to throw the ball to, so a little dicey, a little volatile. Mike Evans, stud. Zay Flowers as your wide receiver. He's your wide receiver 5, to be honest, because I think Pickens is your wide receiver 4. Wide receiver is incredibly strong. Running back, not so much. Tracy, maybe he's the 1A for the Giants. Maybe it's Cam Scatabo. Travis Etienne, maybe he's the 1A for the Jaguars. Maybe it's Tank Bigsby. Brandon Ayuk, maybe returns midseason. Ramondre Stevenson, maybe he stays involved all season. Maybe Travion Henderson just takes the vast majority of opportunities. Maybe not vast majority, but the majority of opportunities, leaving Stevenson kind of like as a borderline or desperation flex play. There's a lot of variance with those running backs, so I don't love that investment. I would have preferred for this team to grab another running back earlier, sooner than they actually did. Goddard at tight end is, I guess, fine, but he is going to be his team's, number 3 weapon when everyone's healthy at best. And then grabbing Trevor Lawrence when you already have Jaden Daniels, it's like, why? Why would you bother? The Isaiah Likely investment in the 14th round, I actually do like. You're just waiting on Likely to come back healthy after a few weeks, so I don't have any issues with that. I like the wide receiver build of this team. The running backs there's a lot of questions. And then team 12, Ashton Genty, Nico Collins. I like that start. Joe Burrow. I would like Joe Burrow more if this team had a stack, had Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. Burrow is awesome, but we're relying on heavy passing volume every week for him to deliver the goods from a fantasy perspective, which he can do. Make no mistake. Joe Burrow is a stud, one of the best quarterbacks in football. But the lack of a rushing floor puts a lot of pressure on Burrow to, we need 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns. We need that. And we might need 40 touchdowns for you to be a 3rd-round pick in one quarterback leagues. We're going to need heavy passing volume, and we're expecting it. But it still needs to happen. Still needs to deliver. So there's added pressure on that pick, especially given Burrow's lack of rushing floor. And I know he ran for like a 50-yard touchdown last year. I think that was against the Giants, so I think it was like a bit of an outlier. And it was a bit of an outlier regardless of who he did that against, because he's not doing that every week. He's not doing that every year. That might be his biggest rushing play of his career, to be honest, like when it's all said and done. I will say I really like Kittle at the 3-4 turn. I think you're getting good bang for your buck investing in a priority tight end, a top flight tight end, while not breaking the bank to do so. So I like Kittle in the 4th round quite a bit this year, especially given the question marks around San Francisco's wide receivers. RJ Harvey is a swing for the fences pick, which I'm perfectly fine with, as is Travis Hunter. And we got that report from head coach Liam Cohen today, or it was more of a comment from head coach Liam Cohen that Hunter will play 80% of offensive snaps this year. That could be coach speak. That could just be him saying something for the sake of saying something. Or maybe the 2nd overall pick in the 25 draft is going to be treated like a wide receiver first and a cornerback second. And we have all the reason in the world to believe in his upside. And then likewise with RJ Harvey, they signed J.K. Dobbins to kind of be that veteran presence. We're hoping Harvey can be that big play guy from the 2nd round of the draft that helps push this run game to the next level in a way that Javonte Williams was just not able to do the past couple of years. It is an upside play. There's a lot of built-in risk, but rookies are more likely to blossom and get better and increase their opportunities than veterans are, incumbents are. So 2 swing for the fences picks in Harvey and Hunter, which I don't mind. I don't mind taking the chance on those 2. Jaylen Warren, Calvin Ridley. I really like Calvin Ridley in the 8th round. I don't know that Calvin Ridley is going to put up like huge, great numbers, but he should get better quarterback play this year from Cam Ward than he got from Will Levis. A huge target share should be coming just because there are few proven options in this passing game right now. So I quite like Ridley. I was going to take Ridley myself had I correctly cued the player, but I didn't. I did not. But I do like the Ridley pick. Mason Charbonnet Tootin. So some decent running back depth, which I don't mind. It came at the expense of some wide receiver depth, but at least Team 12 does have 3 clear-cut starters, I guess, to turn to in Nico, Hunter, and Ridley. And then grabbing some upside later in Kyle Williams, who has been drawing some pretty good reviews in camp. So that's positive. And then Mason, drawing positive reviews. Charbonnet, I just like because Walker has been missing some practice. Obviously, it's still very early. There's only so much stock we can put in missing training camp practices, but Walker has a pretty extensive list of injuries in his young career already. So I actually don't mind taking late chances at Charbonnet. And then the rookie Bishal Tootin for Jacksonville. We'll see. This could be a developmental year for him as a 4th-round pick. I think he's going to have to earn it behind both Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. He's cheap enough. He's definitely cheap enough, so I don't mind it. But I would go 1 round later, or actually Bigsby was taken ahead of Tootin in this draft. In best ball, Tootin goes ahead of Bigsby, but maybe redraft is a little sharper. Because Bigsby is the guy that I would most prefer to own of the Jaguars backs. Yeah, not bad. And then McCarthy, who I like, but it's 1 quarterback, so I wouldn't have drafted him, especially since I drafted Joe Burrow in the 3rd round. So there's my thoughts on the computer generated teams. So that's the mock draft. What's going on, Bobby? Thank you for re-upping your membership. Appreciate you joining on for another year. And I see Theo joined as well. What's going on, everybody? I can hardly give a review of my own team just because, I just drafted it, so hopefully I like it. But I will say, if Amarian Hampton is still on the board in the late 3rd round, that is an auto smash. And honestly, if he's available in the middle of the 3rd round, especially given the situation with Najee Harris, if nothing improves, and there's still a lot of time before the start of the season, a lot of things could change and change quickly. That is the landscape of the NFL. If Najee turns a corner and his health starts to improve and the eye is fine and he's starting to get practice time in and all that good stuff, then Hampton's value is going to take a hit. But if nothing changes from what is going on today and what has transpired recently, and that Najee is not practicing, no timetable to return, he might not get any time in training camp with to practice with the team. If that all holds closer to season start, Hampton is going to be a late 2nd round pick. He's going to you're going to see Amarian Hampton go in this range. So my advice, if you were drafting today and Amarian Hampton is available pretty much by this point in the draft, like the 304, the 305 spot, I'm taking him there. Because as of right now, Amarian Hampton is this team's RB1, not Najee Harris. Najee Harris might not even be this team's RB2. We have no idea. We don't know when he's going to practice. So getting Hampton at the end of the 3rd round, obviously it's an August mock draft. There were 8 computers in here, and they were just reading, they're just going chalk by the board, and Hampton's ADP hasn't adjusted yet, given all of the stuff that's going on with Najee Harris, even though there's been plenty of time for Sleeper to course correct here. So getting Hampton in the 3rd round is it's like I would absolutely do that. And then I like that I got Henderson in the 6th round. I messed up taking Chris Godwin here. I wanted to take Calvin Ridley, but I hit the wrong button to cue the player, so I ended up with Godwin. And then I ended up, the auto draft continued to stay on. I wasn't able to pause it in time to end up with Kyler. These were not picks that I organically made, but then they kind of impacted the rest of my draft from there. So I kind of don't love how that played out. I would have taken Calvin Ridley where I took Chris Godwin, and then I might have honestly taken like a Stephon Diggs, just a double dip on wide receiver ones or wide receivers that I expect to receive a wide receiver 1 target share. I might have gone Ridley and Diggs. Maybe I take like Justin Fields didn't go to round 12. I think he can absolutely go a little higher than that. I might have taken him a little higher than that to pair him with Garrett Wilson. I could have grabbed Trevor Lawrence to pair him with Brian Thomas. So this kind of went south on me, but I still made sure I just went ahead and grabbed guys that I like, guys that I'm interested in later in drafts. And so I didn't let a couple of slip-ups deter me from still ending up with guys that I like. Breaking news. Wide receiver Keenan Allen is signing a 1-year, $8.52 million deal. That's a very specific number with the Chargers. Keenan Allen returns to Los Angeles, the LA Chargers, not the Rams, to be specific. Spent his first 11 years in the NFL with the Chargers, spent his 12th year with the Bears, comes back for his 13th season with LA. I'm not sure what that necessarily looks like for Ladd McConkey. They play very similar roles. So we'll see who ends up lining up where for the LA Chargers. But that just broke. That just took place. Keenan Allen signing a 1-year deal to return to the LA Chargers. So their wide receiver room gets a veteran boost. Team and player are both very familiar with each other, so there's some comfortability there. So Justin Herbert gets a veteran wideout to lean on. And he will presumably push guys like Trey Harris, Quentin Johnston, and Keandre Lambert-Smith down the depth chart, assuming he can still do it. I guess this could mean that Keenan Allen is the guy who's lining up in the slot, and they may push Ladd to the outside. McConkey might be getting some outside, some opportunities to line up as a boundary wide receiver. So I don't think that deters me from drafting Ladd McConkey where I've been drafting him. That late 2nd round range, I think, is still fine for Ladd. He may not be in the slot as frequently as he would be without Keenan Allen, but they're not going to take Ladd McConkey off the field for 2025 Keenan Allen, with all due respect to Keenan Allen. I mean, Ladd, it should be the guy that leads this Chargers receiving core in, opportunities, targets, receptions, yards. That shouldn't waver. That shouldn't change. Even though it may push Ladd to the outside a little bit more. And Keenan Allen will presumably play the slot. Maybe not exclusively, but a decent amount of the time. So there you go. Keenan Allen signs again with the LA Chargers. Or signs back with the LA Chargers. I guess he didn't sign again. Let's see. So, Bobby, thank you again for joining on as a member. Appreciate that. So we can absolutely take this question. Looks like you already drafted your squad. That is early. That is an early draft to hold, but whatever your league wants to do, you are all entitled to do so. So here's what we got: 12 teams, full PPR. So I need to know, Bobby. I gotta know: is this start one quarterback? I assume you start two running backs. Are we starting 2 or 3 wide receivers here? What does your starting lineup look like? Nevertheless, I mean, Kyler's going to get drafted as the, QB 8 or 9, has the rushing upside, has good weapons to throw the ball to. He was very up and down last year. He was inconsistent. Now he is multiple years removed from the torn ACL, so that should no longer be an issue. We really need him to run, to maintain his fantasy value, and he did that last year. He actually did. I feel like it was kind of quiet. Didn't Kyler have like his most rushing yards in a season, or second most rushing yards in a season for his career last year? Something like that. I'm looking this up. So we need him to maintain that. We need him to get Marvin Harrison more involved in the offense. We can't just lock in on Trey McBride every time. That is going to make the offense predictable. Kyler ran for, the second most rushing yards of his career last year. So that's pretty good. He had the extra game to do it. He played all 17 last year. Okay. So the rushing floor is still there. We can expect that from him. 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2. Okay, so you start 2 receivers. Got it. Okay, so you took Kyler and Love. I was just running through this mock draft and some thoughts and some feedback based on how these teams were structured. I'm not typically a proponent of drafting 2 quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback league. I typically just grab 1, and that's the guy that I'm hanging my hat on. But you ended up with 2 good options. Kyler is an upper echelon fantasy quarterback. He's an annoyingly inconsistent NFL quarterback, but he is a solid option for fantasy because of his rushing upside. Love is cheaper than he was last year because of the time that he missed due to the injury. So we're obviously expecting some positive regression for the Packers offense this year. So I am bullish on Love bouncing back compared to last year, especially with the addition of Matthew Golden, their first round pick. So I do like Love this year. And if teams are hoarding quarterbacks, then it's fine to kind of follow suit in that instance and just kind of protect yourself with some insurance, basically, so to speak. So yeah, I'm okay with that. Going now. That's okay. That's fine. I don't mind that. McCaffrey, Swift, Pacheco, Montgomery, Mason. So I like McCaffrey quite a bit this year. I think he's got, he should go back to having RB1 overall upside this year. So I like that. I don't know where you got McCaffrey, and I don't know who was on the board when you took McCaffrey, but I do like his upside this year. I have him ranked as my RB3, slightly, like just a hair ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs. And I know that it almost feels disrespectful to Gibbs to say that, but McCaffrey appears to be healthy. We've seen the training camp videos. There don't seem to be any questions as like there were last year. So I like investing in McCaffrey this year. I'm perfectly fine with that. In fact, to the point where I would draft him. The only running backs I would draft over him are Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley. And to be honest, as much as I love Saquon, you could even make the argument that you want to put McCaffrey ahead of Saquon because of Saquon's usage and workload from last year. So I'm good with drafting McCaffrey this year. I'm not worried about. I mean, I think it was Steve mentioned you think McCaffrey may not play a full season, and that's fine. I mean, he's 29 years old. He has had injuries. I get it. I don't want to play. I don't want to play fantasy with any like trepidation. I want to believe when I'm drafting these players that they are going to be as good as they possibly can be. And what McCaffrey can be is RB1 overall. I think he still has that upside because of his receiving capability. He's not reliant on 300 carries and just like volume after volume to deliver the goods and come through. He is a PPR machine. He can make big plays running or receiving it. He's not a dude that just needs to rely on volume, even though he will get volume because, well, the 49ers need to give him the ball. They have to. So I like the McCaffrey pick. Swift, Pacheco, Montgomery, Mason. I'll admit that grouping kind of has some warts. Pacheco's interesting. I do think he's the favorite to be the lead runner for Kansas City. And I know it's not a crazy, I know that doesn't sound like some hard-hitting news or analysis or anything like that because there's not much behind him. Kareem Hunt re-signed. They signed Elijah Mitchell in free agency, and they drafted Brashard Smith, who is an exciting young rookie. But again, or not a 7th-round draft capital. So it's like he could be involved. We don't know how likely that is. So Pacheco looks like he should lead this backfield in opportunities as long as he's healthy. So I don't mind Pacheco. Swift, I'm not sure about. He looks like a draft day winner on paper because the Bears didn't invest very heavily into their running back room this offseason. In fact, they barely touched it at all. They drafted, oh my God, Monangai, I think is it Kevin or Kyle Monangai? I feel I'm the worst right now. I need to know. Kyle Monangai, from Rutgers. Oh my God. Yeah. 7th-round rookie, intriguing name, not high draft capital, obviously. So it's anybody's guess how involved he's going to be. I actually quite like Roschon this year. I think Roschon Johnson has a chance at being Ben Johnson's David Montgomery. I think there's a chance of that. Maybe not as good. Not as good. But I think he's got a chance to get pretty heavily involved, and that could come at Swift's expense. So I'm not sure about Swift. And then you have Montgomery. The vibe seemed to be that the team wants to turn the keys over to Jahmyr Gibbs even more so this year. We'll see if that plays out. Montgomery is still a damn good running back and a safe bet for 8 to 10 touchdowns. So you just need him to score every other week for him to come through, which should be doable. We still expect this to be a good offense. And then Jordan Mason, I mean, the vibes are strong on Jordan Mason right now. The Vikings traded for him. They've been talking him up this offseason. So I still like Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is my guy, always has been, always will be. I will always be an Aaron Jones supporter. Therefore, I default to preferring him, and he is the proven starter. But the team seems to like Mason quite a bit. They went out of their way to go get him. They spent draft capital to trade for him. They talked about him being the goal line guy. So, like, there's absolutely value there. So, it's a decent stable of backs. I like the McCaffrey pick. There's questions about the other guys, but decent depth here. And then Brian Thomas, Mike Evans, Marvin Harrison, Jordan Addison, Michael Pittman. Okay. I mean, Brian Thomas is awesome. We saw that last year. We just need what we need to see from Brian Thomas is that he maintains his target share with Travis Hunter now in the mix. And we saw his target share kind of really get inflated those last few weeks of the season when it was Mac Jones playing quarterback, not Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence still targeted Brian Thomas a healthy amount, but it was Mac Jones that like really boosted those end of season numbers for Brian Thomas. That being said, Brian Thomas is awesome in his own right. I don't think we need any one specific quarterback for him to be successful. What I want to see from Brian Thomas is, will he maintain his wide receiver one target share with now that Travis Hunter is in the fold? And Travis Hunter continues to draw rave reviews in camp. He was the second overall pick for a reason. Liam Cohen, the head coach, came out today and said that they envision he'll play 80% of the offensive snaps. That question has been back and forth all offseason long. How much offense versus how much defense is Travis Hunter going to play? I mean, he's going to play a good amount on offense, and he's going to get a lot of targets when he's in there. So I like Brian Thomas. I'm drafting Brian Thomas. I have no problems taking Brian Thomas and adding him to my team, but I am very curious to see what this offense looks like and what this target share looks like. I'm curious to see what this target share looks like with Travis Hunter in the mix. And then we've got Evans, Harrison, Addison, Pittman. I like Harrison. I want to like Harrison, I should say. And you stacked it up with Kyler. So actually I like that. I like that even a little bit more now. He bulked up this offseason, added some muscle. I don't know that was his problem necessarily, though, last year. Creating any amount of separation was one of Marvin Harrison's problems. And then the other was Kyler just didn't look for him. Kyler like seems to only have eyes for Trey McBride. And then that ladders up to the offensive coordinator and the offensive scheme in general. So the coaches need to do a better job on behalf of Marvin Harrison. Kyler needs to do a better job finding and targeting Marvin Harrison. And then Marv himself needs to prove that he can actually separate consistently from NFL defensive backs. So there is a lot that Marv has to prove. I like his cost this year more than I do from last year. I do think he's a talented player. He had a disappointing year compared to expectations, but he still cleared 800 yards as a rookie. That's generally viewed favorably. That's generally viewed positively. It's just that expectations were so freaking high for Marvin Harrison last year that he ultimately, it felt like he fell short. Well, he did fall short because he was being drafted as like a mid to high second round pick, and that didn't work out at all. But on the surface, in a vacuum, he had over 800 receiving yards. Like, for a rookie, that is good. But now we need that to match expectations. So we'll see if he can do that. Mike Evans has been a stud his entire freaking career. Obviously, we're closer to the end now than we are to the beginning. So it's like, all right, when is that drop-off going to happen? But he still cleared 1,000 yards last year for the millionth time. With Chris Godwin nursing the dislocated ankle and still working his way back. We like Emeka Egbuka a lot, but he is a rookie. I would think Mike Evans has a solid target share once again coming his way. So I'm perfectly fine with him as your wide receiver 3. Addison, you're going to be waiting on. I mean, he got suspended today, or the suspension was official. We knew it was coming. It became official today. He will miss the first 3 weeks of the 2025 season. You do have good wide receiver depth, though, to wait that out. So this is an instance where I'm okay with drafting Jordan Addison. So I'm good with that. It looks like my connection looks like my Wi-Fi keeps kind of going in and out. So hopefully it's okay. If anything skips or lags or anything like that, just let me know, and I am happy to repeat whatever was missed. All right, the Wi-Fi appears to be okay. My connection seems to be a little spotty. If anybody misses anything that I say because of a lag or anything, I'm happy to repeat myself. And then Pittman is your wide receiver 6. I mean, we were drafting him in the 3rd round last year, so I don't mind that gamble. If Anthony Richardson can take even marginal steps forward as a passer, I mean, then Pittman will return good value. And then you got a cheap, but still we're expecting a tight end 1 season from Tucker Kraft. So no issues with that. That's perfectly fine. It does remain a crowded wide receiver room. Lots of mouths to feed in the Packers offense. Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Romeo Doubs, I guess Dontavian Wicks. Christian Watson is going to miss probably most of the season. He suffered a torn ACL late in the year last year. And even if he does return to the field before the end of the season, return to play does not mean return to expected performance immediately after an injury like a torn ACL. So Watson probably not a factor this year. So that helps Tucker Kraft. But the addition of Matthew Golden, I mean, we'll see how things shake out in that Packers pass catching room. So quarterback options are good. Wide receiver options I like. The running backs with McCaffrey as your hero RB, I like that a lot. And then you just need one of Pacheco or Swift or Montgomery to be a reliable guy week over week. It could be Pacheco one week. It could be Swift another week. But you have McCaffrey to hang your hat on as your stone cold, clear cut RB1. So I do like that. And then decent depth with Mason there. I think it's a good team, Bobby. I do. You have rushing upside at the quarterback position. You have a high end stud at running back in McCaffrey. You got solid wide receiver depth. I think this is pretty good. And you only have to start 2 wide receivers, so you can really sit back and be patient with Jordan Addison before he returns. You have perfectly competent other options to pivot to for at least those first 3 weeks of the season that we will not have Addison. Which, by the way, for everybody else, go ahead and bump TJ Hawkinson up your board a little bit as a tight end target now that Addison's suspension is official. Increased opportunities now for Hawkinson for the first 3 weeks of the season. Better chance that he gets off to a strong start. And that's a thing. That's a strategy. That's something I like to do. It's something I look for. Like, I like to look for players that have a chance to get their season off to a strong start, and then you carry that momentum for as long as you can. So TJ Hawkinson, I quite like as a tight end target this year, especially given that Addison won't play for the first 3 weeks. Hawkinson should be the second option in the passing game behind Justin Jefferson, who is also dealing with a minor hamstring issue right now. We're expecting it to have no impact on his week 1 availability, but Jefferson's not practicing right now. So, I mean, Hawkinson in practice today right now might be the top target for JJ McCarthy. So just another feather in Hawkinson's cap as a guy that I'm looking at as you stand out, TJ Hawkinson. You stick out as a guy that I think has a great shot to get off to a strong start to the season. And therefore I'm interested, especially at a position so volatile as tight end is. So just throwing that out there. But hopefully that all helps, Bobby. Thank you for joining on as a member again. Welcome back. Quite early draft. I would tell your league mates, if I could give your league one piece of advice, it's to wait a little bit longer to draft closer to the season start to reduce that potential window of crazy things happening, whether injuries or off-field stuff. Now, obviously, real life is something that we all deal with, and maybe this is the best time that works out for your crew. Maybe this is the time that works best for you all. And then it's okay, fine. Do what needs to be done. Do what you have to do to make sure that you get your draft in. But if I could give one piece of thought or advice, it's if you can push your draft back in future years closer to season start, I would encourage you to do so. That eliminates training camp practices and potential injuries and off-field stuff. You squeeze that window where random stuff can happen that can impact the players that you end up drafting at this time. So that would be my only piece of advice. Yeah. And then Demario Douglas or Keenan Allen is just in a vacuum question I have here from Theo. Demario Douglas will be, I guess, the Patriots wide receiver 2 behind Stephon Diggs. Keenan Allen, I guess, is the wide receiver 2 behind Ladd McConkey. One is catching the ball from Justin Herbert. The other is catching the ball from Drake May. Objectively, Herbert is a better quarterback than Drake May at this particular moment in time. Drake May has a lot of supporters, has a lot of believers. Rightfully so. I thought he flashed quite a bit last year in a bad situation, in a bad circumstance. So we're expecting year 2 growth. That being said, I think Herbert is generally viewed as like a top 7 or 8 quarterback in the NFL, or at the very least top 10. So I got to give the edge there to Herbert. Douglas is younger. Keenan Allen is, I guess, more proven, more accomplished. And he just got paid $8.5 million. What's Demario Douglas? What is his contract? How much is he getting paid? He's still on his rookie deal. Yeah, he's still on his rookie deal. So he's getting paid like a little over $1 million this year, whereas Keenan Allen's getting paid $8.5 million this year. Run first offense in LA. I don't know that it's a run first offense in New England. It might be a pass first offense in New England, especially because New England's top running backs are good pass catchers. So it might be a pass catching offense. So so I might give the slight edge to Keenan Allen because he's the vet and he's catching the ball from the better quarterback. Volume might be an issue here. The Chargers want to run the ball. The Patriots might want to throw the ball a little bit more. So volume might be less of an issue for Demario Douglas, but I'll take the proven vet who rejoins a very familiar situation, probably one that is very comfortable for Keenan Allen. He played with the Chargers his entire career other than last year. And, he caught the ball from Justin Herbert before he left. So it's not like it's a new quarterback since Keenan Allen moved on. So there's comfortability there. There's familiarity there. There's wide open opportunities in this pecking order for both teams, really. But I'll take the vet. I'll take Keenan Allen here and lean on the veteran as like a dart throw for some wide receiver depth. I'll lean Allen. And then Bobby's, where do I prefer to draft? It changes every year. This year, I prefer the beginning, like the top 5 or 6 picks. A couple years in a row, like it last year, the year before, I preferred drafting near the end of the draft. I liked the names compared to the top of the draft, I liked the names that I could get at the end of the first and the top of the second. This year feels top heavy. I can draft if I have a top 5 pick, I can draft either Jamar Chase or Saquon Barkley or Bijan Robinson or CeeDee Lamb or Christian McCaffrey, if you're not worried about his past injury history, or Jahmyr Gibbs if you are. And I haven't even mentioned Justin Jefferson, who is also deserving of a probably top 3 pick, assuming his hamstring issue is just a camp, is just a camp problem and it's not a long-term problem. And, he's fine. And the Vikings are just proceeding with extreme caution. Assuming that's the case, Jefferson could be, is in that top 3 discussion. I like that 4, 5, 6 range because Chase probably gets drafted, Robinson gets drafted, and then probably Jefferson gets drafted. And then it's like, okay, if I have the 4th or 5th pick, I'm either going to get Saquon or CeeDee Lamb or Christian McCaffrey or Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, yeah, sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. So I guess I like the 4, like I'll take it a step further and like not just the top of the draft, maybe that 4, 5, 6 range. Like the first 3 or 4 picks will kind of dictate the direction you go in if you have the 5th or 6th pick. And the 5th or 6th pick doesn't feel like it's not a difficult decision to make this year. It's like, okay, yeah, I end up with either McCaffrey or Gibbs or CeeDee Lamb. I will take that all day. So this particular year, I like drafting near the beginning. And then at the end, at the 2-3 turn, at the end of the second round, top of the third round, there's enough flexibility on both sides where whichever direction I went in the first round, I'll have my pick of the litter in the second round. If I go Christian McCaffrey or Jahmyr Gibbs, like 4th or 5th or 5th or 6th, there's a good chance that I can get a Ladd McConkey or an A.J. Brown or a T. Higgins in the mid to back half of the second round. If I go CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson, there's a good chance that I can get a Devon Achane or a Jonathan Taylor. If I want to, diversify and mix it up and keep the start of my draft, the start of my build balanced. I think there's good balance this year, regardless of the direction that you go, if you have that like 4th overall, 5th overall, 6th overall pick. I usually hate picks 5, pick 6, pick 7, and sometimes pick 8. I usually prefer either picks 1 through 4 or picks like 9 through 12 in a 12-team draft. This year, I actually like picks 5, 6, 7 because you're ending up with McCaffrey or Gibbs. So this year, I actually like a top. I like a top draft pick. I like a top 6 pick. In seasons past, that might not have been the case. I don't actually remember the last time I liked the middle of the round. It's been a while. I usually dislike having, pick 5, pick 6, pick 7. This year, I'm okay with it because of the running backs that are available to you. If you believe in McCaffrey, if you want to end up with Gibbs. And then even if all else fails, if you're at the 8th pick, you can get Puka, who is a top 5 wide receiver in the league. So, I think the first round is it feels like safer this year. It feels more robust this year than in recent years. I don't know why. 5, 6, 7 have been positions in the draft that I want to avoid. This year, I'm more than happy to have those spots. I think the end of the round is a little tougher this year because you've got really good wide receiver and running back options. But there's some question marks. Brian Thomas, will he maintain a dominant target share with Travis Hunter in the mix? Derrick Henry is awesome and probably at this point is probably a surefire Hall of Famer, but like that age cliff is coming. And he's a generational talent, and his longevity will be greater and better than your average running back because Derrick Henry is a superhuman. But it's not going to go on forever. So like when's that going to happen? Devon Achane is in that, range, like high second round pick. What's Miami's offense look like? Is Tua going to stay healthy the entire year? That offensive line is not that great. Is Achane going to get the receiving work to boost him up into that RB1 profile that he's being drafted as? I think so. I know he's good enough. I know he's talented enough. But the situation around him is that good enough. So like the end of the first round into the top of the second round, I have more questions than I usually do. I usually quite like the turn. I like being drafting at the end of the first round and top of the second round. I historically like that because I like the two good players that I can get. This year, it feels like the picks that I want go in the top 6 or 7. And then after that, the decisions kind of get a little trickier. Because historically, or in recent drafts, it's been like there's 4 bona fide studs. And it's like if you have one of the first 4 picks, you are getting one of those first 4 bona fide studs. And then picks like 5 through 8, yeah, these dudes are all awesome, but there's a tier break. And now I have to sift through that. And I already am past the tier break by the time I get to the end of the first round, top of the second round. And now I'm getting 2 really good players. It feels like the tier break for those top studs is bigger this year. It runs 7 deep. And then the drop off is actually closer to the end of the round. And now I have these tougher decisions to make. Like picks 9, 10, 11 this year, to me, feel like picks 5, 6, and 7 of previous years, if that makes sense. I like the top of the draft this year more than the bottom of the draft. Bottom of the round, excuse me. I like the top of the first round, and I even like sort of the middle of the first round this year more than the end of the first round. I usually love the end of the first round, 9, 10, 11, 12. If I have my first pick in that range, I don't like it as much this year. I would much rather have a pick by pick like 7 or 8. Pick 7 or 8 guarantees you one of Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Puka Nacua. After that, it's like there's a million different ways you could go. You could go Malik Neighbors. You could go Nico Collins. You could go Ashton Genty. You could go Derrick Henry. You could go Brian Thomas. And those guys are all great players. But I feel less confident about how I want to rank them than I do those top 7 or 8 names. So, yeah, I like that. If I can get a top 6 or 7 pick this year, I prefer that. So if you have if your redraft league, if you have a certain way of determining draft order, maybe you have a fun, creative way where your league figures out how the draft order, if it's not random, I would aim for a top 7 pick. And for me personally, that like 4 or 5 spot is the sweet spot. Yes, you would miss on Chase and Jefferson and maybe Bijan Robinson there, but you're still ending up with Saquon or Jahmyr Gibbs or Christian McCaffrey or CeeDee Lamb. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll take that. Okay, we are at the end of the chat. I don't know that there are any pieces of news left to go over. So I may be shutting this down here shortly, but this was a fun hang. This was a fun stream. I'm glad that I had so many folks join in and spend some time here. Appreciate all you guys coming in and hanging out, whether it was for 30 seconds or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it was. I appreciate you guys. I am more than happy to keep running mock drafts. If these are helpful exercises to give you guys practice as we approach draft season. Bobby already had their draft, but there's lots more drafts on the horizon coming up in the coming weeks. So I'm happy to hold these for a little bit of practice, and you guys can bounce questions that you may have off of me, or strategy, or why did you do this, or why did you take that player, or what were you thinking there? This is how we mold our plan, right? This is how we shape our plan of attack going into the season, and how to ultimately make the most of our draft selections and where they fall ultimately in the draft order. So can continue to go through that. I can continue to pump out some rankings if that's helpful. And then, as always, these are always open forums. These streams are always available for you guys to just drop questions in. Members, as we get closer to the season, or in general, a perk of being a member of the channel is getting your questions answered in priority order. So if you're interested in memberships, that can be found in the first description, first link in the description of this live stream. You can find out more details there. Questions from members will get priority responses. That is one of the perks of the channel. But anybody is free to ask questions, and I will get to them as I see them, as they pop up. This is obviously that time of year where we're all shaping and molding our strategy, and I'm here to hopefully help you, in the best way that I can, cook up your plan of attack in your redraft league. So I'll be back on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, same time. I'm happy to kick off another mock draft if that would be helpful for folks. I can also talk maybe some wide receiver rankings. I talked about running backs already. I did do a stream on running back rankings 1 through 12. And then I also did a stream last week I didn't do running backs 13 to 24. Instead, I kind of talked about navigating the running back dead zone. That's a very popular phrase at this point. I'm sure many of you, if not all, are very familiar with the phrase dead zone. I go into that even deeper in that stream. If you want to take a listen, I identify some players that are not being drafted as running back ones, but that are guys that I'm willing and open to targeting in the middle and later rounds for running back depth. So I can do that same exercise for wide receivers, although wide receiver is a little bit more linear than running backs. The running back dead zone is a little bit sticky or a little bit more difficult to navigate, whereas wide receiver depth is pretty abundant throughout the draft. Kenneth Gainwell or Demario Douglas. This is where I would go Demario Douglas, because I think he's going to be an every down player for the Patriots. Gainwell is behind Caleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren on the Steelers depth chart. And Jaylen Warren is an incumbent that I think they really like at this point. He's great in pass protection. He's going to see the field a lot, and he does break off some explosive plays when healthy. And then Caleb is their third round rookie. The vibes are good. It sounds like he's going to have a significant role early on, and it's only going to grow as the season progresses. Gainwell, I think, is there as just like insurance. Maybe mixes in on third down. Maybe he mixes in the 2-minute drill. How those roles shake out is yet to be determined. We shall see. But I would say Demario Douglas for sure over Kenny Gainwell. I don't think he's going to have as significant of a role. Douglas should be a starter for the Patriots, whereas Gainwell is his own team's RB3. Yeah, I think he's just there for it's Caleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren are the Steelers backs to own there. I mean, Gainwell is maybe deep dynasty league depth. Maybe he emerges if there's an injury to one of those other two guys, but that's about it for Gainwell. I'd rather have Demario Douglas. He should start opposite Stephon Diggs for New England. Okay. I think that about does it. If there are any other questions tonight that I maybe miss, feel free to leave them in the form of a comment on this live stream or any streams on the channel. You can also join my Discord, evergreen invite, second link in the description of this live stream. Feel free to join over there. I take questions as I'm available over there all the time. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Maybe we'll kick off another one of these mock drafts as we continue to practice and get ready for the start of the season. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Bobby, for joining on again as a member. Nice to have you back. And everybody who joined in, whether you participated in the mock or participated in the chat or both, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to come hang out. And I will see you guys on Thursday. Thanks, everybody.